to address the climate change related problems, United Nations have been taking a lot of initiatives since 1972 and holding several conventions, conferences, and made several protocols concerning environment. One of the earliest one is known as the Ramsar Convention in 1971, to which India is a party, for protection of wetlands. There are several sites, over 75 of them, of which in Kerala you have the Ashtamudi Kayal, Shastamkota Kayal, Vembrand Kayal, all are coming under the Ramsar Convention. In 1972, the first global conference was held at Stockholm, and on completion of that, in 1974, India has made the Water Act and Air Act in 1981, which is the basis on which consent to operate is issued to industries in our country. That was followed with a Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species in 1973 to protect various types of species. This was followed in 1979 with the Bonn Convention on Conservation of Migratory Species of Wild Animals. The Amur falcons and the bar-headed geese are among the significant migratory species in India. In 1985 and 1988 came two important conferences and protocols on substances that deplete the ozone layer. In India, we have the ozone depleting substances control and regulation rules since 2000. The Basel Convention in 1989 on hazardous waste and their disposal has resulted in creation of a rule, environmental rule in our country called the Hazardous Waste Management, Handling and Transboundary Movement Rules, which the latest revision of which was in 2016. You have all the authorization and their consent to operate based on this particular protocol. The Convention on Biodiversity was held in 1993 with the explicit objective of conservation of biological diversity, sustainable use of components of biological diversity, fair and equitable sharing of the benefits arising out of utilization of genetic resources. Except United States, everyone else has ratified this particular convention. This was followed by two important protocols called the Nagoya Protocol and the Cartagena Protocol, which are supplementary to the Biological Diversity Protocol. The United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, or the UNFCCC, is actually holding the Conference of Plenipotentiaries, or in simple terms, Conference of Parties, which is a group of all nations who meet every year and discuss about the progress that is being made, concerns that they have, new initiatives that they are required to make, coming to new protocols and agreements. The Rio Summit in 92, also known as the UN Environment and Development, or the Earth Summit, was held, which focused on the effects of human socio-economic activities on the environment. This was also to commemorate the 20th anniversary of the Human Environment Conference held in Stockholm in Sweden in 1972. The UN Convention to Combat Desertification was adopted in 1994, which was primarily addressing to protect the dry lands composed of arid, semi-arid and dry subhumid regions and vulnerable ecosystems and populations. One of the most protocols during the past 30 years was the Kyoto Protocol on agreed reduction in greenhouse gases, which became an international law in 2005. But by looking at the performance, this particular protocol has not really served its original intended purposes. This was followed by 1998 Rotterdam Convention on Hazardous Chemicals, by facilitating information exchange among countries on the characteristics of chemicals and to control them. On Cartagena Protocol was held in 2000 AD on living modified organisms and the effect on biodiversity. The Stockholm Convention was held in 2001 to safeguard environment and human health from POPs, persistent organic pollutants. The UN collaborated program on reducing emission from deforestation and forest degradation in developing countries was held in 2008. Nagoya Protocol was held in 2010 on biodiversity. The Minamata Convention in 2013 was held on mercury as an international agreement to safeguard the environment and human health from the harmful effects of mercury. This convention includes ban on new mercury mines, the phase out of existing ones, the elimination or reduction of mercury use in various goods and procedures, control measures for air emissions and releases to land and water, regulation of the unofficial artisanal and small-scale gold mining industry. The convention addresses mercury's short-term storage, ultimate waste disposal, mercury-contaminated areas, and health concerns. The Kigali Agreement in 2016 called for a phase down of hydrofluorocarbons, and the agreement is in 2032 onward, India will phase down HFCs in 4 stages with a cumulative reduction of 10% by 2032, 20% in 2037, 30% in 2042, and 85% in 2047. HFCs per se do not destroy the ozone layer, but they have a very huge global warming potential between 12 to 14,000 times that of carbon dioxide. One of the most significant changes from the United Nations occurred in 2015 by making the Sustainable Development Goals, which are 17 of them. All of them are concerning our daily life to end of poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, decent work and economic growth, industry, innovation and infrastructure, reduced inequalities, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption and production, climate action, life below water, life on land, peace, justice, and strong institutions, and partnership for goals. This actually forms the input for the modern emphasis on the ESG initiatives, which have become very popular over the past 7-8 years. The Paris Agreement or the Paris Climate Accord was reached in 2015 during the Conference of Parties 21, which is actually the UN agreement for replacing the Kyoto Protocol with new targets. The leaders of 196 countries agreed to reduce the GHG emissions and wanted to achieve global temperature below 1.5 or not exceeding 2 degrees by 2180. With the Paris Agreement, countries also established enhanced transparency framework, and from next year onwards, countries will report transparently on actions taken and progress in climate mitigation, adaptation measures, and support provided or received, providing international procedure for review of various submitted reports. The Conference of Parties 26th, which was held in 2021 in Glasgow, agreed for certain targets on obtaining the net zero emissions of carbon dioxide by 2050. Net zero means whatever you emit, please compensate by sequestration, afforestation, and things like that. China committed to achieve net zero by 2060. India's commitment is to achieve net zero by 2070. One welcome change that has occurred is the United States coming back to the meetings after a huge staying away for close to 5 years during the previous regime. What are the challenges facing the global community in achieving the net zero goals? Normal climate changes, population growth, political ambitions, wars, hostilities, pandemics, economic issues, supply chain issues, depleting stock of resources are all challenges. The posing against that is the need for development in many countries, level of deprivation, inequalities, and poverty. These are the kind of challenges the new world is facing in achieving the net zero goals. There are initiatives from financial institutions. The World Bank has adopted a new climate change action plan that will boost financing aimed at reducing emissions to align its policies with the Paris Climate Agreement. Various investment companies like BlackRock or asset owners and asset managers, banks in our country also have various ESG initiatives, and there are funds already in the marketplace. Sustainability reporting by leading companies all over the globe for the past 15-20 years, using various methodologies, leading organizations have been reporting their sustainability practices, and that will encourage the supply chain to follow. Then there are regulatory expectations. Over a period of time, the Securities Exchange Board of India has been encouraging the organizations to report their business responsibility matters. And in 2021, they announced the business responsibility and sustainability reporting voluntarily from 2021-22 and mandatory from 22-23 for the leading 1,000 listed companies in India by market capitalization. This can generate a domino effect as supply chain will have to really fall in place. India has a lot to do as government of India is committed to the Paris Climate Accord and will actively push the agenda forward. This is the context with which we must actually look at the growing emphasis of environmental, social, and governance related reporting.